and iron were piled up in mountains, easy to reach and easy to mine. Ready at hand was the milling equipment needed to process the ore. On Australia's plains were millions of sheep, which in Japanese hands would supply the island kingdom with ample meat and wool for their own use and for export. Once they had Australia, they thought, and its 7 million people to work for them as slaves, their position would be impregnable. By March of 1941, Japan found it expedient to send its foreign minister to Berlin to verify the reports of its military attachés. Germany had conquered half of Europe. Japan controlled a large part of China. Japan was accepted as an equal by Germany, and many of their political and military ideas were identical. Germany had already studied Japan's method of handling subject peoples. Similar methods were applied in Poland and other countries. Between Japan's leaders and Adolf Hitler, there was a perfect meeting of minds and a complete understanding. Out of this meeting between two unscrupulous warrior nations, bent on destruction of the existing world, came an agreement that Germany would not interfere with Japan's designs on Indochina and Thailand. In these countries were bases closer to Singapore than any yet in Japan's hands, bases from which the Japanese planned to launch their conquest of the South Pacific. The French turned over their ports and bases in Indochina to the Japanese without a struggle. The whole operation was an uneventful dress rehearsal of what Japan planned to do in 1942 in the Malayan archipelago, in the Philippines, and in the Netherlands East Indies. Shock troops were lightered ashore with their equipment in the type of amphibious operation Japan had been practicing for years in China. By the time advance troops had begun moving into the interior, they were assured of ample equipment and replacements. Here and there, scattered resistance was easily dealt with, but there was no organized opposition. Within a few days, at the cost of hardly a man, the Japanese were in possession of all of Indochina up to the border of Thailand, which they well knew would offer no difficulties to their armies. Then Japan was ready for its next move, a move destined to be remembered in history. In Tokyo, a cabinet crisis was arranged, and the one man who could satisfy Japan's powerful war party, General Hideki Tojo, became prime minister. Into office with him in October 1941, General Tojo brought faithful admirals and generals who had served the war party. The removal of Premier Konoye in favor of Tojo meant that the great decision had been made. Japan was setting out irrevocably upon its path of conquest in the Pacific. Within a few weeks, the Imperial Japanese Navy was standing out to sea. to the United States and to the British Commonwealth of Nations, the warriors of Japan had thrown down the challenge. And it is that challenge that we, the people and the fighting forces of the United States, in our own blood, our unremitting effort, and our stern sacrifice, must forever answer.